All right, everybody, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. I love when this program goes full circle. We are doing that indeed. First hour of the show, we talked a lot about Royalmount, right? The new shopping complex that will be opening tomorrow. And when we were having this discussion in the first hour, I received a text message. It was at 9:57 a.m. I received this text message. Elias, they should have built a park. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that the Royalmount is not a park. It will be a shopping complex. Maybe it will get some housing. But I do have some good news on the park front, because the city of Montreal has announced they're going to invest $27 million to revamp Jeanne-Mance Park by 2026. Of course, that park right next to Mount Royal is one of those iconic parks in the city used by so many. Alex Norris, Projet Montreal Executive Committee member and Associate Councillor for Large Parks and Mount Royal, is on the line. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Elias.
Tell me about the $27 million plan to revamp a jewel. I mean, a Jeanne-Mance Park, I truly mean this, it's a gem, it's a jewel in the city. How are you going to make it even more of a gem?
It is indeed one of Montreal's most iconic and beautiful parks, right at the foot of Mount Royal, the main entranceway for people coming from the east to Mount Royal, but a beautiful park in its own right. And so I'm very happy that these projects are going ahead. We have a wading pool in the park that is not up to contemporary standards. For years, lifeguards had to kick everyone out of the pool, shovel dry chlorine into the water. They'd be dressed in hazmat suits. They have to wait for the chlorine to dissolve and then allow the kids back in. That is not up to contemporary standards. We had to close the pool this summer. And so we're making significant investments to build a proper filtration chamber and to revamp that pool to make it universally accessible so people can use it in wheelchairs as well. So that's a big plus. We're taking advantage of that project to also put in new water jets, a splash pad that will be right across the pathway from the wading pool to create kind of a symmetry, framing the Sir George Etienne Cartier Monument further west. So I know that those water jets will be super popular with users of the park. You know, Jeanne-Mance Park is one of the most heavily used parks per square meter in the entire city of Montreal. And this will be an amenity that I'm sure that many people will enjoy using on hot summer days. We're also taking the bull by the horns and finally, after years of effort, building a fenced dog run in Jeanne-Mance Park. Previous administrations of the city had opposed the idea of having a fenced dog run in the park because it's part of Mount Royal Heritage Site. There were concerns on aesthetic grounds, on heritage grounds, that adding more fencing to the park would be a bad idea. But it's needed. Almost 1 in every 4 households in Montreal has a dog. And if you look at the map of the neighborhood and you can see where the fenced dog runs are, there are really none in that area of the plateau. And, people were bringing their dogs to the park. They were allowed to use a patch of grass just west of the artificial turf between Park Avenue and the soccer field at very restricted hours, early in the morning and in the evening. And of course, the dog owners were uncomfortable because there was a risk that their dogs would run out into Park Avenue and get hit by a vehicle. Parents of young children were uncomfortable seeing dogs running off leash in the dog. There were conflicts. We even had a petition from the local daycare. And so the challenge was how to integrate a fenced dog run into a heritage site. I personally consulted a number of heritage experts about this, as did our professionals in the Service des Grands Parcs of the City of Montreal. And so there's going to be a large fenced dog run that's going to go in south of Duluth, on the grassy plain just east of Park Avenue. So that's a huge gain for dog owners in the neighborhood. We're also improving the multi-sport field, the artificial turf area. The stands are not universally accessible. They're going to be made accessible to people in wheelchairs. We're actually taking down part of the fence and lowering the fence all around that field to make it more accessible. Oftentimes it was fenced up and closed. People wanted to play pickup games but couldn't get into the field. Now they'll have access to it. Whenever it's not reserved, people will be able to access that field play pickup games on that turf.
Alex, can I just ask you, now we're talking about sports, and I know every time that something's done at Jeanne-Mance, it seems like the softball players lose a field. So, do the softball players keep their field?
I understand, and I know that when the North Field was closed, there were a lot of people upset about that. However, we kept our promise to prioritize that informal group who play pickup games of softball right at the field immediately next to that where the North Field was. The South Field it's immediately adjacent, and the players play there. And I was moved by the whole mobilization to try to bring back the North Field, and at one point actually recommended that we rebuild it. But after the pandemic, we saw the explosion in the number of people coming to the parks, and what I and anyone else who uses the park noticed was that area has become even more heavily used by picnickers, frisbee players, all sorts of people just relaxing on the grass. So we have a designated space, one of the largest designated spaces in Jeanne-Mance Park that's dedicated to a single sport, in this case softball and baseball. And that is being used, but the rest of the park is open and is even being more heavily used now. So I think that, everyone would like to see more space for their favorite sport. And the exercise of drawing up a master plan for the park is trying to find a balance between all of those uses, and also ensuring that there's enough space for people just to relax that isn't fenced off. One of the points that came up in the public consultations that we held on Jeanne-Mance Park was that there was a strong desire to avoid fencing off the park and having what people called a series of cages in the park that left no room for people to relax. So I think we've achieved a good balance here between open use areas that people really appreciate and areas that are fenced off for specific
Before
I
have to let you go, Alex, I do want to ask you about this. Obviously, there's a price tag here, $27 million. What do you say to someone? I'm just getting text messages from listeners here, and they say, listen, Jeanne-Mance Park was fine as it is. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine, and you could take that $27 million and build housing, do other things that are badly needed. What do you say to someone who's got that?
Well, I would say, first of all, housing is our top priority as an administration, and we've done more than any other administration in the history of the City of Montreal to tackle the housing crisis by a whole variety of means. And homelessness in particular is a humanitarian crisis across the country that Montreal has not been spared from. But we have taken measures to protect rooming houses. We have bought numerous properties across the City of Montreal that are designated for social housing. We have adopted bylaws to prevent renovictions, and so we're very active on that front. But parks are also a social equity issue. You have to keep in mind that many Montrealers do not have backyards, do not have cottages that they can drive off to, do not have automobiles to get out of the city. Parks are their own backyard. Parks are heavily used, and everything was not fine with Jeanne-Mance Park. We have a wading pool that is closed down. We had a soccer field that was inaccessible. We had a need for a fenced dog run. All of these changes are meeting real pressing needs in the community. And so, fixing up our parks does not preclude our tackling the housing and the homelessness crisis, which are the top priorities for our administration.
It's interesting, Alex, because I said this show goes full circle. One of my arguments on the Royal Mount front, the city deserves nice, beautiful things. Sometimes a shopping mall can be beautiful. We deserve nice things. And let me just tell you, looking at the renders of this new Jeanne-Mance Park, how it's going to be revamped, it looks beautiful. We deserve nice, beautiful things. So
absolutely,
it's
going to be magnificent. It already is a magnificent park. It's going to even be more beautiful when this project is completed.
Alex Norris,
just going ahead.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on.
That's executive committee member responsible for large parks in Mount Royal, Alex Norris.